Hello, everyone. This is so encouraging to hear the conversation, to hear the buzz in the room. It just makes me excited to see how you are embracing your colleagues from across the country, and I'm just pleased to be here. My name is Lisa Washington Thomas. I'm the branch chief for the self-sufficiency branch in the Office of Family Assistance, and I want to thank you so much for coming. We really commend you for the hard work you do for our vulnerable families. Although there are things that need to be improved, but there are children who are being fed, there are parents who are being trained and put into employment, or just giving an opportunity to take another step to improving their lives. And I just want to thank you so very much for all the hard work you do. So can you give yourself... But as you know, as we grow and live, we always know that there are opportunities to learn more, to do more, and to change things. And that's what we have done, hopefully this week, is to provide a plenary agenda, conference agenda that will help you to learn new things. We have, most of our workshops are being led by your peers, so we have promising practices that will be shared. We have a few workshops that will talk about the latest research agenda, and you'll hear OFA's vision of where we're planning to go from ACF leadership. So we think that this will be many opportunities for you to learn from each other, learn from our new leadership, and then hopefully take some nuggets home that you can incorporate into your programs. I just want to give you some housekeeping items. We, as part of our vision that's going to be shared, we have an employee excellence plenary. We also have a workshop, and you'll see videos throughout the agenda during plenaries, outside in the hallways, and we have a studio of excellence and Studio C that you can meet with. We call them employees of excellence. They're partners who have found ways to try to train and get people employed. Those who are hardest to employ, they have found strategies. Some of them are TANF programs and work and partner with TANF programs, some don't, but we just think that there's information that can be shared and that you might be able to gain something from. So please look out for the videos and reach out to some of our presenters. We also have an app. We have a mobile app for this conference, and we have a help desk in the lobby for those who need help downloading. And someone was sharing a useful tip that if you download the app and then put in your schedule, I haven't done this part yet, it will send you push notices of where you're supposed to go in your room, in which room. So it can be very beneficial to help keep you organized. We also have several exhibitors that are displaying ACF projects. So we have our OFA Peer TA. Anybody know about OFA Peer TA? Good, I saw some hands. It's an opportunity for you to learn about what's happening in the field and also to request TA. So if you, during your next 2 days with us, if you find some information that you want to know more about, you can talk to your regional program managers or regional specialists, or you can also request TA online and we can help connect you to the information that you are seeking. We have the online work readiness assessment tool. They have an exhibit. The self-sufficiency research center is outside that has a wealth of information about the latest research in the field. We have Mathematica outside, and they will also be doing a workshop. And they're talking about our OFA's newest project, Project Improve, that's helping TANF agencies look at their data and find ways to track if your innovation is making the change that you hope for, and then how to make adjustments. So they are out. Also, we have PCG, Public Consulting Group. They're working on a coaching model for us. So they have a display outside, and they will be also asking for help. They've done several modules to introduce coaching. That will be an online module, and they're looking for representatives to look at those modules and see and give honest and critical feedback. We have the National Responsible Fatherhood Clearinghouse outside, and we know that how important fathers are and two-parent families are to our populations or to any family. So we have the National Responsible Father Clearinghouse and Healthy Marriage Resource Center. So please reach out to each other, reach out to our exhibitors, looking at our employees of excellence. Now I want to take the time to introduce our new OFA director, Clarence Carter. Clarence has significant experience in the field. I first met Clarence when he was the director of the Office of Community Service. We worked on a project, the Urban Partnership Initiative, in which Clarence introduced his idea about continuum of care. Since that time, Clarence has gone to agriculture to work with the food stamps. I guess it's now called SNAP. He's also worked at he came from Richmond, and then he went to several states and DC and Arizona, and he has refined his vision and now is more refined. He's looking at person-centered services and looking at how the safety net should be able to be not a place for people to stay, but a temporary place that people will move. I think they said the person from Washington State called it a trampoline. It's a place that people go when they need to, and they jump off and go in to help support their families. And I am so happy that Clarence is now the OFA director and not down the hall somewhere, and that he can share his vision with us. So, Clarence.
Lisa, thanks so much. Good afternoon, everybody. And let me welcome you to the nation's capital, and thank you for taking the trek here to help us focus on how we use the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program to help lift vulnerable families beyond that vulnerability. I want to begin by thanking Lisa and her team. I have been on the job now for a little bit more than 2 months. And I got in, and of course it took me a few weeks to figure out where the restrooms were. And once we got that done, then I wanted to begin to engage in some of the policy work. And I was quickly confronted with the fact that we had 2 significant conferences coming up. Last week we did our Healthy Marriage, Responsible Fatherhood Conference, and this week is our TANF administrators. And so I wanted to be able to shape those engagements some. And so I would, Lisa would send me the draft agenda and said, let's talk about this. And there were things that I wanted to add and tweak. And so I would start to sneak down to Lisa's office and say, Lisa, is it possible if we could? Okay. And she was always, with a very gracious smile that she would say, we will see if we can make that happen. And all of it she has. But I do have a tendency to meddle quite a bit. And so those trips became more frequent, okay, where I would, poke my head into Lisa's office. And as I said, she was always very gracious about it. But you could tell there were times when the look in her eye was, this is getting to be a bit much. Okay? But Lisa, I just want to thank you for graciously accommodating all of it. So folks, one of the tweaks that I wanted to make was to have us pay particular attention to serving the most difficult families that we have to serve. Sometimes in our emphasis to meet the numerical requirements of our work, it diverts our attention away from the most difficult to serve, because serving the most difficult doesn't always help us meet whatever the numbers are. And so one of the things that I wanted to do is to commend to your attention during this conference some organizations that have figured out service to some of our most challenged populations. Homelessness, individuals coming out of incarceration, people that have literally no work history, folks that can't even read and write, to showcase that there are models that serve the most vulnerable and serve them with honor and distinction and help to grow the functioning capacity of those families. And so you will see on the screens throughout our conference, and as Lisa commended to your attention, across the hall, there is a small exhibit room where we have asked those initiatives to share with you the heart, the head, and the passion behind the innovations that they have designed to serve some of the most vulnerable. This is something that it is necessary for us to do. So if I could, for just a couple of minutes, I wanted to share with you some of the things that we are thinking about in how we focus on the work that we have to accomplish. And then I'm going to bring up our Acting Assistant Secretary, Steve Wagner, to share some insights with you. I will have you know that I asked specifically for this engagement in the Office of Family Assistance, and there are a couple of reasons for that, and I want to explain it. The first is that 21 years ago, the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act, and TANF in particular, made the idea of work in the context of the safety net no longer a four-letter word. That it was okay for us to be able to engage vulnerable individuals and families in work as a sure pathway to self-sufficiency. Well, we have for 20 years refined that notion. And we've come to the place in our society where we are looking to expand the idea of work across a broader swath of the safety net. There have been discussions in SNAP and potentially in Medicaid and in housing, where we're looking at work requirements. And so I wanted to go to a place that had a history with understanding how to apply work in the context of the safety net. And so it's the reason that I wanted to work with the Office of Family Assistance. Now, the second reason is because I perceive TANF as more than simply a program. Okay? It is a program that is representative of the idea of the safety net operating as a trampoline and not a hammock. It's the idea of helping to lift people beyond their circumstances. You know, I'm fond of saying that the safety net should be a mile marker in a life's journey, not a destination unto itself. But unfortunately, as it has operated, it has served for far too many families as that destination unto itself. It is time for us to reimagine the American safety net. And I use that term, reimagine, very intentionally. And the intention is because that is what Secretary Dr. Tom Price has demanded of all of us in Health and Human Services, to reimagine how we go about addressing the issues of health, human services, and well-being. And so I see this as an opportunity for us collectively to reimagine the American safety net, to, yes, catch individuals when they fall, but to be very intentional about helping to bounce them back into their own performance in the circus of life. And so that is what we are going to work for during the time that we are together. Not simply a focus on work participation rates. Okay? That's an important part of what we do, but I have to tell you, it gets to me to be mind-numbing when our focus is on how we count a particular activity than whether or not we have grown the capacity of someone to make their own way. So let us use this time to reimagine the next generation of the American safety net. I can't imagine the amount of collective wisdom in this room for this work that we have done. But we have got to harness and unleash that collective wisdom on this challenge before us. And so with that, I want to introduce a colleague and new friend. Steve Wagner serves as the Acting Assistant Secretary of the Administration for Children and Families. And what that requires is for Steve to know a little bit about a whole lot. There is such a broad portfolio, and I'm running to Steve about the things in TANF that are really important to me. But 15 other people are running into things that are important about child welfare, about child care, about what have you. And so he is required to have a very broad portfolio, and as I said, a little bit of knowledge about a lot of people. I would tell you that in my early conversations with him, it is clear to me that he has an abiding passion for ending the scourge of human trafficking. That part of the dedication of his life and career has been to how we can organize as a society to eliminate that scourge from our society. And it has been my distinct pleasure to have this brief opportunity to work with this consummate thinker and leader and manager of human services, policy, and people. It is my pleasure to commend to you the Acting Assistant Secretary of the Administration for Children and Families, Steve Wagner.
I love working with Clarence Carter. He's just such an energetic and dynamic and visionary leader. Tighten your seatbelts. It's going to be a wild ride. But we're also going to accomplish some good in the act. I wanted to have this opportunity to welcome you, to say thank you, and to honor the work that you do. Although bringing you to Washington in August is maybe not doing you any favors. It turns out it's untrue that before the invention of air conditioning, Washington was a hardship post for British diplomats. But it's a great story and it ought to be true. I wanted to honor you in particular because you touch people's lives. You look the people you serve in the eye and you shake their hand, and I can't do that. We shouldn't try to do that from Washington. I can only touch people vicariously through you, by serving you, by helping you do what you do. This is the best that I can do. Clarence and I and his outstanding team, as you heard, will be working during our tenure to make TANF function better, and we will do so in consultation with you. Clarence has already devised with his team some really exciting reforms. Unfortunately, I can't talk to you about them. We're in the middle of the preparation for the next budget cycle, and this is the way these things work. We put forward suggestions for reform, and until they come back with after the Secretary has had an opportunity to evaluate them and weigh in, we can't announce anything publicly, but I can tell you I think you're going to find it exciting. You will see a commitment to the principle of work, and you'll see a commitment to the principle of flexibility that will help you integrate funding streams of federal benefit programs so that you are better able to serve your clients. Flexibility with a purpose. My oldest daughter is a nurse. More importantly, she's the mother of 2 of my 3 grandchildren. And she lives in Charlottesville, Virginia. You probably saw the news over the weekend, the tragic and very ugly events that occurred in that bucolic town, that little town. Events which are all too and increasingly common in our society today. These events remind us, they remind me anyway, what happens when we stop seeing the dignity and the worth in the other person. It is so vital to maintain that. My daughter is an ICU nurse. She's working her way up the professional ladder of trauma care. She wants to be riding around in a medevac helicopter. God help me. Why is she interested in trauma care? I asked. Because in trauma, my patients get better. Of course, right? Doesn't that make perfect sense? Isn't that why all of us do what we do? Isn't it in order to see your clients get better? Did anyone here sign up to maintain dependency and despair? I think not. As Clarence mentioned, TANF is 21 years old. Back in 1996, there was an incredible spirit of innovation. I think, in fact, it's fair to say that the states forced the passage of TANF on the federal government because of all the dynamic work that was being done across the country. Was that an aberration? Was that a strange moment in history? Are we capable of repeating the kind of innovation that occurred then? Are we not as capable today of the same sort of new thinking? Has TANF become an ATM machine for the states? Or is it, in fact, in the helping people get better business? You may well ask why the emphasis on work that you see in your program here and in Clarence's remarks and Secretary Price's remarks and indeed the remarks of the President. Why are we so devoted to work? Work is not punitive. Work is ontological. It is who we are as a person. It is integral to our character as human beings. It lifts up the individual. It confers dignity. It opens up vistas of opportunity so that we can realize our vision for our lives and more thoroughly participate in the promises of living in America. That's what work means to me. Plus, it's therapeutic. Recent studies have shown that work promotes good health, and to the contrary, the lack of work is associated with poor health outcomes. Secretary Price, in a recent speech, made this point. We are doing, he said, a disservice to the health of our fellow Americans if we are not designing our programs to support and encourage work. Is caseload reduction the purpose of TANF? It is not. But in government, you always get what you measure. And so if we count caseload reduction, then that's what we're going to get. Instead, I agree with Clarence that what we need to be measuring is how many people transition to unsubsidized work. 29% of TANF-eligible families are receiving benefits under the program. Is this supposed to be a good thing? Are we supposed to rejoice in fewer TANF-eligible families participating in the program? If indeed TANF is beneficial, if it helps people, then I worry that we are moving toward the creation of two classes, the privileged poor and the ignored poor. The privileged poor being those who have the benefit of participating in programs like TANF. I would like to see the mechanisms devised in TANF applied more broadly to more recipients of public assistance. And I'd like to see the experience of TANF inform those other assistance programs. We have already started to reach out to the Department of Labor and the Department of Agriculture to look at ways that we might be able to synchronize and harmonize our programs. Recently, Congress mandated the creation of a What Works clearinghouse, a research resource for getting people back to work. Fortunately, through the Office of Family Assistance and the Office of Program Review and Evaluation, we basically have already accomplished this clearinghouse. I hope you're familiar with employmentstrategies.acf.hhs.gov. So we're well on our way to fulfilling this congressional mandate to have an online resource for the transitioning to work. But what we're missing in this are your contributions. So you will be hearing from us as we seek to collect the case studies of the innovative things you're doing to populate this new website and use those experiences to help inform your colleagues. I wanted to give you a sense of what to expect from this administration. I think you already have gotten that from Clarence's remarks. We are committed to federalism. Federalism means the appropriate relationship between the federal government and state government. We understand our proper role. We understand your proper role. Federalism makes possible partnership. It makes possible collaboration. And I hope that you will find in the coming months and years that there's an unusual degree of collaboration for the purpose of achieving the great goals for which TANF was created. It is our intention to reinvigorate the spirit of 1996, that spirit of innovation, and usher in a new era, as Clarence said, of reimagining not only TANF, but the broader American social safety net. We will be calling on the knowledge and experience you have gained over the years in administering TANF to inform this effort. And we are dedicated to strengthening your toolkit to truly engage participating families in work and the path to self-sufficiency. So let us return our focus to the proper outcomes, the things that really matter, on making lives better. Let us rededicate ourselves today to providing the path for Americans to live life more abundantly, to recognize the dignity in all people, especially those whom we have the privilege of serving. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Clarence. Clarence is willing to take some questions. We have some roving mics. KC has one, and Steve on my left has another mic if you have any questions for Clarence.
Now, I didn't have the sense that there was that degree of shyness amongst this body. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Please.
I'm very intrigued by, excuse me, what Secretary Wagner said about synchronizing all of the programs to work together to coincide. In fact, this was actually a topic of conversation over lunch, and I guess I don't really have a question, but more of a statement that I would really look forward to the efforts put in realizing that, and would offer my assistance in whatever we can do at the state level to assure that.
And can I ask you your name and state?
My name is Terry Brewer. I'm from the state of Michigan.
Thanks so much, Terry. I think Steve most appropriately represented, from our perspective, a fundamental challenge with the design of the safety net. The safety net is an aggregation of single-purpose programs, each intended to address a singular aspect of the human condition. One program developed without any broader context than that particular issue that it was trying to resolve. And oftentimes the rules of one program not only don't support but conflict with the rules of other programs, retarding our ability to take a comprehensive approach to human well-being. And so as we step back and look at the issue of human well-being from a more person-centric or family-centric approach, and not so much a programmatic approach, it will require us to completely reimagine how these programs operate. And so that's what that's what is our intention to do, to not necessarily be a respecter of the rules of any particular program, but to understand that our original intention here is to grow human capacity to reduce dependency. And so then everything has to work in that context and not just the context of a singular program. Please.
My name is Gene Pondold, and I am from New Hampshire.
Hey, Gene.
Hi, how are you? So the work participation rate has been something that has been so embedded into what we do by terms of measuring success. And I love the idea of reimagining. It's wonderful. So, I mean, what are some of those things that we will be reimagining?
Please, keep going.
Sorry. So,
go ahead.
I mean, and this becomes a philosophical training issue for the states because it's embedded in our staff to be meeting this work participation rate. And we're starting to do that a little bit in our state now. And we actually just had a training last week, and we said, okay, we're working with individuals who have these significant barriers. So we know that we're going to be taking a hit on our participation rate if we're doing the right thing by putting them in barrier resolution activities. But then a couple days later, we're like, oh my God, but our participation rate's going to go down. So it's a balance. It's a philosophical challenge.
So, Gene, thanks so much for raising the question. And let me just give you a couple of aspects of how we can reimagine.
Okay.
Okay. So the first is, we assign different calculation rates to different activities, okay, which require you to almost be an aerospace engineer to figure out how you can put all those things together to meet the rate. Well, while you're trying to figure that out, people are in need of help. And so we've diverted your attention from engaging them to focusing on how can you meet the rate, okay? Now, it is absolutely our intention to honor work and engagement in work. But the way that we end up going about it now is this, pardon me, ridiculous calculation, okay? What we want to do is we want to make the emphasis on engaging families in work and less of that knucklehead calculation, okay? And so you're gonna see from us some ways that we're gonna propose that are gonna make that less complicated and really allow you to reward getting people to work, okay? And again, just not making the work about the computation, but making the work about the work. For every public law that has ever happened, there are always unintended consequences. And we don't understand those unintended consequences until we actually operationalize it. Well, in 20 years of operationalizing TANF, we have come to understand that our emphasis on work is absolutely, completely, and totally appropriate, because that is the pathway to health, well-being, and self-sufficiency. But we have to be careful about how it is that we engage you in engaging families in work. And we've just learned some things, that there are some ways that we go about asking you to compute that simply don't add value. And so we want to reimagine how we do that. Right? Here, behind you.
Thank you. I'm Debra Sook from Minnesota.
Hi, Debra.
I want to follow up on that. I think your point about unintended consequences, and we don't know them till we operationalize.
Right.
So I hope there's room for the states to partner with you in some trials. Do the measures give us what we think they give us, so we don't go down another 20-year road and find out that's not what we meant to do? Because some of us in states have been trying alongside the work participation rate some other alternative measures that we think could tell us something meaningful. So it's just a request.
I think that Steve made a most appropriate point, that in our belief in federalism, partnership and collaboration are at the center of it. Understanding that we are not the font of all wisdom, okay? That it's actually you out there who are operationalizing these things, where the lion's share of the wisdom resides. And so we are going to be very aggressive about our cooperation and collaboration on everything that we do. And so stand by to stand by. There are some things that, as Steve said, that we're just not in a place yet where we're ready to have a public conversation about them. But I think that when we are in that place, I think you'll be excited about the opportunities. And just know that as we go down this reimagining path, it will absolutely call on the wisdom of the field. You know, sometimes we end up making, law and regulation and policy by what I call egghead logic, okay? There are people who sit in distant places thinking great thoughts and say, we're gonna do this thing. And the people on the ground scratch their heads and say, what knucklehead ever could have thought to doing it that way, okay? And so As we try to reimagine, we're going to do our best to not fall prey to egghead logic, to use the wisdom of the states in the field to help us figure out if it is our intention to grow the capacity of people to reduce their dependency, then how do we best go about that?
Hi, Clarence. Russ Sykes, APHSA. How are you?
Hey, Russ, how are you?
I'm good, my friend. Good to see you. We had a very interesting pre-meeting this morning of our National Association of State TANF Administrators, and we had many of the same topics on our mind, particularly around the work participation rate and reimagining how we actually measure success. But I have two different questions for you. One is, I think we need to do a much better job of involving employers, not only in the work we do to get people to work, but in developing the career and technical skills and the curriculum for the jobs that are actually going to be there in an evolving economy and so forth. And then the two biggest problems we face, and I hope you're going to reimagine these two because they're really critical, are childcare and transportation. The childcare system is expected to do a Herculean job with very limited funding, to be quite candid. And there's the two parts of childcare. One is how important quality and health is, but the other is how important supply is. And we're lacking supply in a lot of places. So those are just my thoughts about some things that we really need to do to make TANF effective as a progress to work program.
Russ, I very much appreciate that. It takes me back to an experience I had now 20 years ago when I was Commissioner of Social Services for the Commonwealth of Virginia. And we were, at that point in time, it was just before the onset of welfare reform, and we were implementing one of the 1115 waivers, and it was with the Virginia Initiative for Employment, Not Welfare. And as it was modeled after what ultimately would be the TANF program, we were requiring individuals to go to work for receipt of benefits and that it be time limited. So I reached out to, at that time, the Virginia Secretary of Commerce. And I said, I'm going to need your help. I said, because we need to now prepare our customer base to be able to go to work. And because we are not on that side of the equation, I don't know where the growth jobs are going to be, okay? And I don't know what the employers are going to require. So we're going to need your help. And he said something to me that troubled me greatly in that moment. He said, young man, I don't believe that you quite understand this. He said, it is our job in economic development to find jobs for the people who are above the line. It's your job to deal with the people who are below the line. Okay? It was hard to not lose my Christianity over hearing that. Okay? But we have not gotten a lot further away from that 20 years later. We are not an employment agency. But what we do have to do is we have to partner, because we need to understand where the growth industries are going to be and what are the skills and abilities that those growth industries are requiring. And then we can do the job of preparing our customer base. We're not going to ask employers to do the work of building the capacity of our people. Okay? We simply want to know what you need, and then we will bring our mechanisms together to help people be prepared to hold the jobs that our economy is creating. So we then go back to this notion, again, that Steve raised, of collaboration and cooperation. No one program, silo, or system can solve the problems of the human condition. If we don't understand that we have to link these things together, then we are never going to be able to move beyond. One of the things that I think that TANF understood in its construction was that transportation and childcare were essential supports to helping that family get to work and then to be able to ensure that their children are cared for in a healthy, safe, and high-quality environment. And so, again, we have to take a step back and not just look at childcare, or not just look at transportation, or not just look at work. We have to look at the whole context of how is it that we support that family to be able to run their race towards self-sufficiency. And so part of our reimagining has to be coming up from looking at a program and looking at the horizon. What is our overall intention, and then how do we organize our assets to meet that overall intention? Yes, yes, ma'am.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Sifo. I'm from Utah.
Hey, Sifo.
And I'm really excited about what you're talking about today. I think we can feel the buzz in the air around work participation. And I've come to this conference probably the last 5 years, and that's, we always have this conversation around shifting away from work participation and really focusing on outcome measures versus the process measures. My question is, how does that happen? Like, what's the process to make that happen? Like, the law change or whatever. I mean, I get that it has to be changed in the law, but like, what are the steps to make that happen?
So, Sifo, the first step is taking a step back and understanding again, restating what is our original intention. Okay? And once we are clear on that intention, then we have to look at what have we learned over the past 20 years that have inhibited our ability to more clearly realize that intention. So we have to learn from where we've been and then use that learning to, if you will, reconfigure. And I want to push back slightly on what you said. We don't want to walk away from work participation, not at all. What we want to do is focus more intently on work engagement and less on the process. Okay, the way the work participation rate currently works, there are 20 of you all out here who have met your target, your work participation target, when you wake up on the first day of the fiscal year, because it is 0. It is 0. Now, we did this because of this goofy rate that we made. How does that help to engage a family when you've met the work participation rate simply because of the way we've organized the calculation? We need to rethink that, okay? We want to make sure that we are always encouraging states to engage with the families. So we have to back up and understand our original intention. And then as we do that, use our experience to understand where we've created pitfalls in helping us to, in keeping us from getting to our intention, and then reorganize our mechanism so that we can get beyond those pitfalls. That's the process, I think, that how we get there. Okay. Folks, thanks an awful lot. Please enjoy the rest of the conference and pay particular attention to our employers of excellence out there. Please, thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. You have about 5 minutes to get to your peer info sessions. They'll start at 2 o'clock. You'll discuss your particular topic for 40 minutes and then switch. You can switch or you can stay there, but you have about a 40-minute conversation. Thank you, everyone. I won't see you again till tomorrow morning, but I appreciate you.